NC Math 1 release items question 15. This is the last of the calculator inactive questions. You know what to do. Try this question on your own. So let's read the question, pause it, and then try it on your own and get an answer. What is the value of the smaller zero of the function f of x equals 2x squared minus 8x minus 24? The smaller zero. Have you tried the question? All right, we're going to go over it in 3, 2, 1. All right, so first of all, again, we had a question before talking about a zero. Seems like this is an important topic, and indeed, when you get to your other math classes, you're going to be talking about zeros. So zeros are the values of x when y is equal to 0. And once again, f of x is y. So really what I'm looking at is, can I solve this equation? 0 equals 2x squared minus 8x minus 24. Now, there are a couple approaches to this question without a calculator. One of them is you can just plug in numbers because they're going to be probably integers, so negatives, positives, numbers that are on a number line. What is an integer? Well, they're numbers that look like this: -1, -2, -3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. No decimals, no fractions. And from the looks of this question, your answer is probably going to be an integer. So the smaller zero is literally the one that's to the left of on a number line if you were to graph it. Now, one thing you should do with these questions is you look for like numbers that you can divide out, greatest common factors. And you'll notice that these are all even numbers. So one thing that I can do is I can divide everything by 2. Now, there's a couple ways to, write this. Since you're actually just solving for 0, you're trying to figure out what the factored form of is. You can just divide by 2 and get rid of it. 0 divided by 2 is going to be 0. So that doesn't change the fact that this equation has 0 equals. Now, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this is going to be like 1x squared minus 8 divided by 2 is 4x minus 24 divided by 2. So minus 12. And you got to know what those numbers divided by 2 are. Now, this 2 really is a GCF, so if you're asked to put it in like factored form, the 2 would go on the outside. But in terms of solving this equation for 0, that 2 does not need to be there. So an equivalent factored form without the GCF written would be 2 equals 1x squared, which is x squared minus 4x minus 12. Now, this question is asking, do you know what number, when I plug it in, the smaller of the two numbers, such that I get 0? It's a lot easier to plug in numbers here without the 2 multiplied in there. But one thing that you should know is this is a factorable question. It will be factorable on the EOC, and you have to know some of the basic factorings. So you may have learned some complicated procedures for factoring, but at the end of the day, you have to know, like in a question like this, you're going to be given 2 binomials multiplied together. Okay, you don't have to worry about this AC junk or anything like that. You just think about if I have a number out here that's 1, which it's going to be 1, okay, not 3 or 4. It's going to be just x squared minus 4x minus 12. You got to look at this last number. Okay, you're looking for 2 groups of binomials, and they're both going to start with x, full stop. Why are they going to start with x? Because x times x is x squared. Okay, so they're going to have x at the front. So we're looking for the n numbers such that they do the following, okay? Now, hear me out. What 2 numbers they have to multiply to your last number? Multiply, multiply. So I got to multiply to your last number. What's your last number? That's -12. So multiply to what we call, this is our C value. So multiply to -12. And they got to add, this is your B value. They got to add to your middle number, -4. Yes, signs are important. So don't just write 12 and 4, write -12 and -4. So sometimes, I find myself writing a little X here and putting a -12 and a -4. So now we got to come up with 2 numbers that multiply to -12. Now I just think of the number -12. Don't worry about the negative right now. Just think 12. What are your factors of 12? What 2 numbers multiply to 12? Well, 1 times 12. That's 12. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. Can't get any other numbers that multiply to 12, but your goal is to get a negative out there. Okay, so one of those numbers is going to have to be negative. Well, my goal is to get those to combine to give you -4, -4. And if I make the 1 and -2 and -3, I can get 4 from these two numbers. However, 6 and negative 2 is going to give me positive 4. So we actually want to make this 2, and we want to make this 2 positive and that 6 negative. So let's think about writing that. So I have negative 6. Whoa, oh my gosh. Oh, goodness. Negative 6 and positive 4, positive 2. Negative 6 plus negative 2, or plus 2 is negative 4. I think I got my two answers. So what does that translate over here? Well, this negative 6 is going to go for one of them, so x minus 6. And this 2 right here is going to go for the other factor. Those two binomials would multiply to give you x squared minus 4x minus 12. Here's a little box method here to help you visualize that. Which honestly, doing that, rechecking your work is fine if you have the time, but you might not have the time for that, right? But you got to know negative 6 and 2, negative 6x and 2x give you negative 4x. All right, I have not answered the question yet, so I'm just kind of rambling, but I feel like you just don't get enough practice factoring because you're probably using a curriculum that just doesn't give you access to routine practice, which it should. And any curriculum that doesn't give you practice on consistent skills is garbage, in my opinion. But anyway, what is this question? I want to set this equal to 0, and now I can solve this question. So let me get rid of all this stuff and let's just focus on what's important. All right, here's our equation. 0 is equal to x minus 6 times x plus 2. Notice I tacked in the 2 there just because that's where that was. That doesn't factor into our answer because if I divided both sides by 2, it would give you 0. But when you're setting factors equal to 0, you're just going to set each factor equal to 0. So 0 obviously does not equal 2, so you can't really do that one. But you say 0 equals x minus 6, and you say 0 equals x plus 2. And you're going to solve both sides for x. So I have to undo that minus 6 by adding 6 to 0. And I'm going to have to undo the plus 2 by subtracting 2 from 0. So you're going to get 6 is equal to x. And then this is going to be negative 2 is also equal to x. And now this question says the smaller 0. And you should know that, well, negative 2 is a smaller number than 6. So if I have 6 over here and negative 2 over here, that's going to be the smaller 0. So the answer is negative 2. Negative 2 is the smaller 0 in this function. Thank you for watching, y'all.